Ever wondered why we say port and starboard instead of just left and right on a ship? These words are baked into maritime DNA, but they weren't always universal. Today we'll sail through centuries of seafaring to see how a jumble of local traditions became a global language. Picture this: 2025, bridge team on a big box boat. Captain calls, "Hard to port," and the entire team moves like a single organism. Zero confusion. That clarity isn't an accident. It's the product of centuries of trial, error, and some truly awkward mix-ups. On the open ocean, especially in the dead of night with visibility closing in, there is no room for confusion. At sea, ambiguity is lethal. Imagine the chaos. A lookout shouts, "Vessel approaching on the left." But who's left? The lookouts facing forward? Or the officer on the wing of the bridge, looking aft? In the precious seconds it takes to clarify, a close call can become a catastrophe. The fundamental problem is that left and right are relative to your personal orientation. Face the bow, and your left is the ship's left. Turn around to face the stern, and suddenly your personal left is now the ship's right. On a heaving deck, with the shriek of the wind, the jarring slam of waves, and the insistent blare of alarms, the human brain is already under immense pressure. Cognitive load is a real and dangerous factor. In these moments, you need a frame of reference that is absolute, unchanging, and welded to the vessel itself. You need terms that never, ever flip. This is why the maritime world abandoned such dangerously fluid terms centuries ago. Port will always refer to the left-hand side of the vessel when you are facing the bow. Always. Starboard will always be the right-hand side. It doesn't matter if you're standing on your head in the engine room or dangling from a mast. The ship's port side remains its port side. This simple, brilliant solution removes the deadly potential for misinterpretation. It creates a shared, unambiguous language that every single person on board, from the captain to the newest deckhand, can rely on without a moment's hesitation. This wasn't a modern invention. Ancient mariners, from the Vikings navigating the cold North Atlantic to Polynesian wayfinders crossing the vast Pacific, understood this need instinctively. They knew that for a crew to function as one, they had to speak a common, vessel-centric language. But while the foreclarity was universal, agreeing on what that language should actually be was a journey that would take centuries, shaped by the very design of the ships themselves. The solution was elegant, practical, and hiding in plain sight on the right side of the boat. Let's start with starboard. Early boats didn't have a central rudder. They used a big steering oar mounted on the right-hand side, because, statistically, most helmsmen were right-handed. In Old English and Norse, the steering side steerboard became starboard. Archaeology and historical accounts back this setup across Viking and medieval craft. That right-hand steering convention seeded a term that stuck. Now remember that all-important steering oar, the steerboard, firmly fixed to the right side of the vessel. As you can imagine, that piece of equipment was absolutely critical. It was your only means of control, your connection to the water. Damaging it wasn't just an inconvenience, it could be catastrophic, leaving you helpless against the currents and tides, especially in a crowded harbor. So, if your most vital piece of steering gear is hanging off the right side of your ship, the last thing you want to do is risk crunching it against a solid stone or timber dock. The solution was simple and logical. You'd always bring your vessel alongside the quay on the opposite side, the left side. This maneuver kept the precious steering oar safely in the open water, well clear of any potential impact. This practice became so universal that the left side of the ship naturally became known as the loading side. For centuries, the official term for this side was larboard. The origin of this word is a bit murky, but it's thought to be a corruption of loading board, referring to the side where the gangway or loading plank was placed. So, you had your steerboard for steering on the right, and your larboard for loading on the left. Over time, many mariners began to colloquially call the larboard side port. The reasoning was beautifully straightforward. It's the side you put to the port when you dock. It was a practical, easy-to-remember term that just made sense in the day-to-day life of a sailor. For a while, the terms larboard and port were used almost interchangeably, with larboard being the more formal, traditional term. and port being the common slang. But this linguistic redundancy was hiding a serious and potentially deadly problem. The problem was auditory. In heavy weather and chaos, larboard sounds dangerously similar to starboard. A shouted order could be misheard. Hesitation or error meant disaster. Something had to change. In 1844, the British Admiralty abolished larboard and made port official, short, clear and unmistakable beside starboard. The United States Navy followed in 1846. With both navies leading, merchant fleets and shipbuilders worldwide adopted the standard, saving lives and ships for generations to come. Once the Royal Navy and U.S. Navy standardized, the language spread quickly through merchant fleets, naval training, and international practice, helped by the reach of the British Empire and the growth of global trade. In the 20th century, international bodies formalized a common language now known as the IMO Standard Marine Communication Phrases to reduce bridge miscommunication worldwide. Port and starboard are hardwired into these standards. Step onto the bridge of any modern commercial vessel, and you're entering a world of immense technological sophistication. Today's bridges are dripping with tech radar overlays, integrated autopilots, and the electronic chart display and information system, or ECDIS, which has replaced paper charts as the primary means of navigation. These systems can predict collision risks, plot optimal routes, and display a wealth of data in real time. Yet, amidst this digital symphony, the most critical commands are still spoken in a language that is deliberately, fundamentally human. This isn't an oversight, it's a design born from decades of hard-won experience. The International Maritime Organization, or IMO, recognized that with crews becoming more and more international, a common, simple language was essential for safety. They developed the Standard Maritime Communication Phrases, or SMCP. This is a carefully constructed vocabulary of essential phrases, designed to be clear, concise, and unambiguous, no matter the speaker's native tongue or accent. When a pilot gives a helm order, there is no room for interpretation. Alter course starboard 10 degrees. The helmsman must repeat it back verbatim. Alter course starboard 10. This closed-loop communication ensures the order was heard and understood correctly. The officer of the watch then confirms the action is being carried out. The helm is starboard 10. It's a three-part harmony of command, response, and verification that keeps the entire bridge team from the master to the able seaman at the wheel perfectly synchronized. This verbal chain of command is the ultimate manual override, a system of checks and balances that technology supports but can never fully replace.
MV Phoenix, this is Tugboat Titan on Channel 13, proposing a port-to-port passing.
Tugboat Titan, roger. Concur with a port-to-port passing. I will maintain my course and speed.
From a right-hand steering oar to global standardization, starboard and port weren't random sailor slang. They evolved to eliminate deadly ambiguity, and they still do. So next time you hear hard to port, remember, it's not jargon, it's safety, history, and teamwork in 3 little words. If you learned something new, give this a like and subscribe to Cruise Ship Safety and Security for more sea smarts made simple. Drop your favorite maritime myth below, and I'll tackle it in a future watchkeeping brief.